This is Joshua Hart here for Seconds Out. Delighted today to be joined by Gareth A Davies here on Sunday evening. Gareth, it is the day after, I would say about 24 hours ago now, you would have been at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for the blockbuster event of Chris Eubank Jr.
Yeah,
versus Conor Benn. A 2.5 year rivalry between the two. Some would say has now come to a close. First of all, just what was your thoughts on the event last night? How did you find your time at Tottenham Stadium?
it was fantastic. The atmosphere was extraordinary. Five good fights. They all entertained in one way or another. Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. left it all in the ring. Can't complain about what they did. Any, not any, but the talk of it being a complete mismatch, that it was a money grab, kind of went out the window given what they actually produced for 36 minutes. Almost more what Conor Benn produced than what Chris Eubank produced, because I think, given he's the smaller man by at least a stone in there, he produced an amazing performance and really did take Chris Eubank deep into the well.
Hmm.
But he'd had his own problems with his weight cut, so there was an evenness about the contest. They all knew what they were doing. Um, the heralding of Eubank Senior was fascinating as well, and that made for the night. It meant the quartet was complete. That was a big moment. It was a huge night of nostalgia. I mean, I've been involved in boxing a very long time, and I've known the fathers a very long time. So, I mean, even got to interview Eubank Senior for Talk Sport afterwards. That was nice, and he was still prodding away a little bit, that it shouldn't be happening. And he wanted to praise Conor Benn as much as he did his son. But it was a great night. I thought it was a great night for British boxing, a great night for boxing, and just showing that what can be created when you put a great event together.
I think one big thing about the fight is how it captured the not just boxing fans but the general public. It really captured I guess you could say the nation. A lot of people were excited for the fight, and when you've got the nation watching, you can only go in there and give it your best efforts and give us a great fight, and that's exactly what we did. I think
Yeah.
a lot of us were predicting the fight to be over inside 6 rounds, and instead we got what I would say a fight of the year contender from the two
Oh
of them.
no, no question, and a couple of rounds of the year in there as well,
Exactly.
right now, and it was a very very fine, like exactly completely right. They produced, they delivered. Conor Benn stock rose. It was a it was a great night. It had a great atmosphere to it. The fans really enjoyed. Like you said, it did cross into the mainstream. It crossed on the Friday actually with the weigh-ins.
Hmm.
That was the big move. That was the big changing point. And obviously, a lot of people. I can tell by the barometer of people's interest today and the numbers. Are you hearing me? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Perfectly
Yeah.
fine, Gareth.
And I'm just in a restaurant. It's a little noisy. Some noisy girls to my right. But why shouldn't there be? I'm in an airport. Everyone's probably going on holiday. But it was a testament to what you can create out of an event. And after all the drugs, what happened to the first event 2.5 years ago? Given what they produced, it just created a great feeling, I think, for British boxing fans. It was great to be there. It won't be forgotten quickly.
We talk about it capturing the nation's imagination and everything and how interested everyone was. Before we look on last night, just looking at Friday, have you ever seen so much anticipation and eagerness just for some weigh-in results? Because I was sat there from 9, half 8 Friday morning, just constantly refreshing every social media
Yeah, yeah.
page to see the result of the weigh-in. Have you ever seen something like that? And again with the Saturday morning as well.
It was fascinating. We were all back and forth. There's a lot of communications going on everywhere, chasing the weights. Have I ever seen anything like that? No, not really. Not that I can remember. Just around the weight. There's always intrigue around the weight sometimes. Um, I think we wanted to know the weight of Saul Canelo Alvarez when he went in against Amir Khan. That was a big moment. From memory, he was over 20 pounds heavier. I think he was 24 pounds heavier than Amir Khan. I think when he went in there, if I recall rightly, he was much, much heavier. So there was that time, but not as much intrigue and it became huge because it was 0.02 and then he was 0.05 of a pound over, which was, a Cadbury's cream egg. Show us your egg, come on.
I don't think they can see me on the screen,
No,
but
no,
here's
no.
my egg here.
I cannot believe that you've had a whole week with a dairy milk Cadbury's egg and not eaten it. Ridiculous.
Gareth, I've had more than one Easter egg, you know.
No, you've got nothing to argue about here. You've got no case to make. But what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is that a packet of crisps overweight, a large packet of crisps overweight, cost Chris Eubank 375,000. And given that he helped to promote the fight by smashing the egg into his opponent's face, that I don't condone, he's paid $500,000 in fines, 475,000 in fines. But at least he managed to repel Billy Joe Saunders from upsetting him, but trying to get into his dressing room to watch his hand wraps. No, I've never seen as much interest as that. It was fascinating. So was it for the next morning as well. And I was chasing the weight the next morning, and obviously he was under 100, just under 170 pounds. But I don't recall it, and I do know what you mean. There was a need to know. There was a need to know what weight he was. Absolutely.
Just looking at last night, I think we'll start off when we talk about the main event. I think we have to talk about the 11th hour arrival of Chris Eubank Sr. You know, you witnessed firsthand on the day of Michael Watson's Miracle Mile, when we first started to see him speak up about the fight and see how distressed he was about it. And in an interview with us that we've already discussed, he said that he would never be in Junior's corner. And for him to arrive last night, obviously watching it just on the broadcast, you could hear the eruption. And for you being in the stadium at the time, you could just see how big of a name and how much it really meant, not just to Junior, but for the fans around the world to see Senior and Junior back together. And it was almost a moment that felt bigger than boxing itself, didn't it?
Yeah, it was like a WWE moment when he stepped out of the vehicle, out of the limo, and then out of the lift. Yeah, there was the biggest cheer in the stadium for that, I think. And as Eubank Senior told me afterwards, it's about suspense, and it was a WWE drama and suspense moment. How late they made the decision that he was coming, that he did speak to his son, I don't know, because I think what he said was he was always intending to come, but he still has the same feelings about the bout. He doesn't want welterweights fighting middleweights. He doesn't want people draining down to make weights. He doesn't want his son draining down to middleweight. And Chris is still in hospital today being checked, so precautionary it is, I hasten to add. And I've had the statement from Ben Shalom, and I was checking this morning, Steve, he still was in hospital, and he is, but they're just checking him over. It's a torrid night. So just drama, drama, drama. So it's been drama all the way along because they are both box office, because their fathers were box office, and they showed the deep fighting DNA that comes in there, that is in them from both their fathers. And they've got a sense for what is theatre as well, both of them. One very emotional and the other very calculated with every move he makes.
I think in that build up to the main event, when the ring walk started, it was spine tingling seeing both of them come out with their fathers next to each other. And one thing that was just different in before we saw the fight was we didn't know if they'd have it in them to live up to what the fathers did 35 years ago. But looking at the action in the ring itself, despite all the action going on beforehand, it really was a true spectacle. And whether you want to see the rematch or not, do you think people would complain if a second fight gets made?
It was a street fight with punches being thrown that never relented. Over 12 rounds, very compelling, very intriguing. It seesawed a little bit. It did what we thought it was going to do, which was bend fast and explosive and aggressive very early. Although Eubank tried to meet him in the centre and repel him, because I think, as he's admitted afterwards, he thought he was going to knock Ben out. He thought he was going to knock him on the way in. And when he tried that first right uppercut and it whooshed past Ben, and then he landed one, Ben's tenacity never daunted, amazingly. And I think Ben was rapacious for 5 or 6 rounds. Then he fatigued a little bit. Then Eubank came into his own. I had it 8 rounds to 5 to Eubank, by the way, full disclosure, 160 and 112. You could have made a case for 7-5, I think, because there were a couple of close rounds, but I scored. I didn't find it difficult. Maybe once, yeah, maybe once or twice I did have to think. But Eubank came into his own, fancied the fight. I don't think he was horribly damaged by. I didn't think during the fight he was horribly damaged by Ben, but he was definitely fatigued by the conditioning of Ben. And then Ben clung on at the end in the last 2 rounds, which made it clear for Eubank. I mean, the 12th round was very torrid, and we thought Ben was going to go, but he actually fought back. It was incredible. It was incredible, first to last. 36 minutes of action. I cannot remember, when I say then either man taking a backward step, no one really took a backward step in the fight. They couldn't afford to. And as a result, it was just coruscating action for 36 minutes. As you say, fight of the year on British shores, no question. Maybe fight of the year in the boxing world. And if you go back over the rounds, you could probably pick a couple of rounds there that may even be round of the year.
I think when you look at
And no one went down. No one went down. They took
exactly.
everything that they threw at each other.
I think the thing I found fascinating about the fight myself, watching it personally, was there was a lot of times for me where it looked like Eubank's legs were going, but we know there was an issue with the canvas earlier in the night. But there were many points where Ben was landing and it looked like Eubank was visibly hurt. Do you think there was on multiple occasions over the 36 minutes where Eubank was visibly hurt, or
I think I think a couple of times his legs went. Once I noted, I think maybe in the ninth
I saw it in the third as well. There was a
and the
leg that
third, a
landed in the
third.
third.
Yeah,
That
I
was the
think it
first
was one
moment I
in the
seen it.
ninth. Yeah, they were in the third, but he wasn't really hurt or out of it. I think his legs just went. The thing was with the canvas. I don't know if you know this because I reported on it last night as well because I went to speak to Mike Goodall. The canvas wasn't painted; it was printed. And so, but with all that gold, with Fatal Fury of the Wolves and all of that on there, because it was printed, it was slipperier. There wasn't as much friction. But they didn't slip a tenth of what some of the others slipped. Chev Clark and David Riley, it was like they were boxing on ice.
Yeah.
There was another canvas under there as well in case there was a lot of blood or it rained. But it was printed, not painted. And there's more friction for the fighters. It takes longer to make those canvases, but there's more friction on the painted canvas for the soles of the fighters. And yeah, I spoke to Mike Goodall about this. He's saying the only way to get around it is to sandpaper the bottom of your shoes, at the bottom of your boots. And I think one of the boxers, Liam Smith, had soles on his, and he didn't slip at all. So that it was weird, wasn't it? But that's just a sidebar, really. But I didn't. I mean, I need to watch it back because I was just so busy in the moment. But I didn't feel. I thought Eubank was relishing it when he was in there more than anything. He was grinning at Ben. He started talking to him. He was calling him on, and Ben was just he was just like. He had a focus about him that was just frightening, and a conditioning that was frightening as well. He's in phenomenal shape. They didn't lie about the shape he was in. They really didn't lie about it. I thought it was phenomenal. It was a phenomenal event. It was a phenomenal fight. It's been fascinating from first to last with the drugs testing, with what is he exonerated or is he cleared? When you think that he's the guy that caused the fight not to happen in the first place. It's Chris Eubank Jr.'s end up with a $500,000 fine but victory at the end of that. And I think Eubank was very popular, I found, in the arena, although it seemed to be split when you talk to people about who they wanted to win. People clearly wanted one or the other to win.
Absolutely. Just looking at a lot of the reaction after the fight, I think one of the things that stood out for me was we saw people get Eubank Senior's reaction to the fight, and he still said very similar things, and that he doesn't want to see a rematch. He said that Matchroom are destroying Conor Benn's career by keeping him up at middleweight. Do you agree with him on that one by saying it's destroying his career, keeping him
Well,
up?
he told me that into the microphone, believe it or not. And he said, and yet, look what Conor Benn can do. Look what he's not a 160 fighter, not a middleweight fighter. He's a welterweight fighter. Let him go to welterweight 147. That's where he can create a world of damage. And he's not wrong. And I don't want to see a rematch. I don't think it's there. I think we don't see anything different in a second fight. It's not wise. We've seen it. I don't think it's going to be. There's no point. Ben's a very proud man. He'll talk about revenge and he'd step in there with him next week and all of those things, and he means it. But we don't need to see that again. And also, we don't want Ben bouncing up and down in weight. Go back down to 147. That's his natural weight. Fight Mario Barrios for the WBC title. He's highly ranked. Get a title under his belt, and then fight a Jaron Ennis in the super fight. That's what I'd love to see him do. And people around me go, no, not Jaron Ennis. Why not Jaron Ennis? You know, Ben is going to be able to create some damage at 147 at 10 stone 7, in my view. And I think his stock rose from the. He lost. But his stock rose, no doubt about it, no doubt about it, and he proved that we've got to call him world class now. We've got to say he's world class, in my view.
For Chris Eubank Jr., I remember seeing that the WBC would grant the winner to go up to super middleweight and face Canelo Alvarez for depending on the outcome of next weekend's fight, what could
Yeah.
be the undisputed super middleweight world titles. If that is the next fight for Eubank Jr., which looking at Turki Al Sheikh's plan for Canelo is probably a while away, how big of a chance do you give him against Canelo?
Eubank,
Yeah, Eubank Jr.
massive underdog. But, I mean, I'd like to see the fight, but I don't think Eubank's in the same league as Canelo. He's a showman, he's a prize fighter, he's box office, he's a celebrity, he walks the walk, he talks the talk. He fought the fight as well on Saturday night. He gave his all. Like I say, they both left it all in the ring. But I'm not sure that he's really of a level to be challenging Canelo, even though I think it would be a great spectacle in the UK. He could bring Canelo to the UK. But I don't see the fight happening because I think you've got William Skull, who apparently was owned by Conor Benn in sparring. I think that was a sparring story. Remember that from the press conference?
I was about to say, what did you make of that from Nigel
I've
Benn?
no need for it. But he was just trying to bolster his son and it was just an example. He was giving an example of how strong his son is against middleweight. And he was right. He was. He wasn't lying. I mean, I don't think they're lying about that sparring session. It doesn't all go well for Skull against Canelo, frankly, but I think Canelo is going to fight Skull next weekend, 6 a.m. in the morning on the Sunday in Riyadh.
About
The
4
fit and
a.m.
the
over here,
timings
isn't it?
normal Vegas time, weirdly. So, don't know what they're playing at, really. I don't get it. I don't understand why they're having an event at that time in the morning in Riyadh. It does make sense, but then it doesn't as well. Because just enjoy it in your daytime. I mean, people are going to be coming in. I just don't get it. I just don't get the timings of the day to be able to do it. But it is what it is. And I think he beats Skull. He fights Terence Crawford in September in Vegas. My understanding is, I don't know this for certain, but I think Hamza Shiraz, if he beats Edgar Berlanga, will get a chance to fight Canelo at super middleweight.
So I guess you could say, looking at that plan, I guess Turkey would probably do Canelo versus Shiraz February next year,
Later, yeah, February, March,
sometime around then, yeah.
yeah.
Which leaves Chris Eubank Jr. in a bit of I guess get a bit of a empty kind of space as to where he goes next. But reading a report from the Ring magazine, Turki Al Sheikh has told the Ring that he plans to stage the rematch between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn in September, again at the Tottenham Stadium. Ben Shalom has also told the Ring that it is a two-fight deal that they'd signed each way. So I guess it seems we
Well,
start talking about the rematch now.
the problem is if he's giving them 10 million each for a rematch, then they're going to do it. But I don't think they should. There's no need. But I will be there. I'll be covering it. Of course I will. It sounds hypocritical, but I'm not going to boycott it. But I just don't think there isn't a need to see the rematch. But if Turki Al Sheikh believes there should be a second fight and he's putting the money up, it will happen. It will happen.
Looking at the
Is
post
that just come out?
43 minutes ago on the Ring
All right.
magazine
Well, that'll
Instagram
happen
page.
then. I'm just gonna have a chip after that. Hang on.
So I've talked about my next question here. Looking at Conor Benn's post-fight press conference, a part that I found really interesting was a member of the media attending the press conference asked Eddie Hearn, "What do you do next with Conor Benn? Do you go down that road for the rematch, or do you target the Barrios fight?" And obviously, as a promoter, you'd expect Eddie Hearn to go with what's going to make the company the most money, what's going to get them the most financial success. But he said that he doesn't want Conor Benn having too many fights like that fight that he had last night against Chris Eubank Jr. and said that he really wants to think about the next move. He doesn't want to rush into any decision. At the moment, he would rather see him go back to the 147. Do you agree with Eddie Hearn there?
You can't bounce up and down.
Hmm.
Not good for the body. For, it will really have an adverse effect on him. You can't bounce up and down like that. When boxers do it, when fighters do that, it really affects them adversely. They're never the same. So if he's going to do a rematch, he needs to stay up at this weight.
The
If he's
thing
going
that
to do a rematch in 6 months, can't or 7 months, can't go down and have a fight at another weight at 147 and then come back up again. It doesn't make sense.
the point that I want to make about it as well is obviously hold it. If Conor Benn holds his weight up at middleweight, it's only going to make the cut back down to welterweight even tougher. And he's not actually fought out the 147 pound limit since the Chris Van Heerden fight in 3 years ago now.
Yeah,
I don't want to sound daft.
still young enough to do it. He's still young enough
Do
to
you
do it.
reckon? Yeah. So
Just,
he,
just, yeah,
but do you
yeah.
reckon if he gives? Do you reckon if he does hold out for that? Obviously, we can only get that September date if they're not injured and they are fit to fight. But given how tough it was last night and at the time rumored broken jaw, but Ben Shalom, I believe, said that there's no truth to that. But just given some of the extents to what injuries there could be that we are unknown right now, would you say September's possibly too soon for a rematch? If you're going to want a 12-week camp for it as well.
You know, October. You want 6 months. You want 6 months. You want to recover properly. They've been through a war. I
Mm.
don't like him ballooning up, and I don't like him yo-yoing up and down in weight. He either stays up and has that fight. I don't really want them to do a rematch. Personally, I don't. But having said that, if they both want to do it and they're going to earn another 10 million each, or 9 and 8 million, then they will, because it's generational changing money, and they will do it at this age in their lives and at this stage in their lives. And we'll hear exactly the same thing from Eubank Sr. again, that he doesn't want it to happen for both of them, by the way. I don't really want to see Chris Eubank boil himself down to middleweight again. I don't want him to go up to super middleweight. Look at Liam Smith last night. You know, at the age of 36, against a young, very much rising, difficult, switch hitting, spiteful fighter, 6'3". You know, the new generation, 25 years old, unbeaten. You saw that fighters age, and that's the age Chris Eubank is. He's coming up 36, and
Mhm.
I don't know. It's a big subject that it'll be talked about a lot in the next couple of weeks. But ultimately, I think we've seen it. My view is we've seen it. There's a discrepancy in the weights. One man is definitely bigger than the other, and the smaller guy was terrific on the night. He really made the fight. it wasn't a mismatch, but you have to say there's weight divisions for a reason.